Hello viewers from different parts of the world, greetings. My name is Edgar Msimbe Constantine. I am a geography teacher and this is Eteta live from Morogoro in Tanzania. So this video will help you to understand the correct ways of attempting various questions. So I'm sure after watching this video, you are going to enjoy this presentation. And basically, I'm going to pass through various questions that appeared in the national examination, but the center of my attention is in one topic, that is introduction to research. And today, I am going to cover 7 questions that appear from 7 years, that is from 2014 to 2020. Now let us start question number 1, that is NECTA 2014. The question has 2 parts. That is part A that asks, what is research problem? That was question number 5. Basically, under this, a question like this needs a student to give an elaborations, description, a bit more elaborations about the concept of a research problem. And you can define or you can explain the concept like this one, for example, saying that a research problem is an idea of interest or a question which the researcher needs or determine the hidden truth. The research problem is an idea of interest or a question which the researcher needs to search so as to determine the hidden truth and be familiar with it. That means it is a problem, therefore the researcher has to look the information that can give more answers for that particular problem. That is, the focus is collecting information, then getting knowledge about that particular problem, then you become that much familiar with the idea. So it is a question that does not have answers yet, that the researcher seeks data in order to answer that problem. This is what we call a research problem. So if you were, as a student, you were to attempt that much good, you can be able to score higher marks. So that is part A of the question that needs more description about the research problem. Now part B of the question is to name the sources of a research problem. So you as a student, you were to name as like this one. Basically, you are told 4, so you have to give 4 as you are instructed by the question itself. So number 1, we have personal experience. Personal experience is one of the source of the research problem. That is, a person can obtain ideas of interest from what he or she is experienced in life. Number 2, we have it can also be from different theories that are stated by other people. The theories stated by other peoples can give room for a person to have a subject matter for generating a study. Number 3, we have it can be generated from literature review. That means by reading various literatures, by reading various books, whether newspapers, magazines, etc. It can give knowledge or can give room for a person to get a problem of study. But again, it can be generated from literature review. Literature review, as we said currently, but again from current issues. A research problem can be generated from current issues. That is, what is more dominant in the environment can give room for a person to conduct a study from that situation. So this is part B of the question. So as a student, if you were to attempt this much good, you were to score top marks. That was NECTA 2014. Now we are moving to 2015. Again, 2015 has different parts. The question was in different parts. We have part A, you are told to describe the term interview. So the student, as a student, you were to give more description, more elaboration about what an interview is. So basically you can explain an interview as a verbal interaction between the interviewer, or the interviewer is just a researcher, and the interviewee or the respondents. A verbal interactions. Verbal means by the use of vocal words. That is what we call an interview. It can be, it's a method of data collection in research where the researcher asks a question and the respondents respond to those questions. That is what we call an interview. And it can be face-to-face interview, but also it can be a telephone interview. That is an interview. So part B of the question is to describe the factors to consider for a successful interview. So the question needs only 5 factors. So you as a student, you were to describe as follows. Number 1, the purpose of an interview. In order to have a successful interview, you need to identify yourself what is the purpose of that interview. By knowing the purpose, automatically, the interview that you are going to conduct will be that much very successfully. Number 2, you have to ensure confidentiality with the respondents. That means those information that are going to be given by the respondents should be exposed to the third party. That is of being confidentiality. Number 3, the use of friendly approach during the interview sessions. That means you have to approach those respondents in a very friendly manner. Then your interview is likely to become very successfully. Number 4, the researcher also should understand the situation where the respondents, the situation of the respondents, as well as being in a proper manner. That is, in terms of behavior, sometimes you have to be that much very proper. You have to understand the situation of the respondents whom you are making interview with. This will also help to have an interview which is more successfully. But again, the researcher also should inform the respondents whether the interview is going to be recorded or not recorded. Because sometimes other people or respondents are not ready to be recorded, so they can even fear to provide much information which are needed in the study. So these are the best ways, the best factors, mainly 5 factors that can be considered for a successful interview. That was NECTA 2015, now NECTA 2016. Again, this year the question has some parts. Part A of the question is describe 4 objectives of doing research in Tanzania. Describe 4 objectives of doing research in Tanzania. Now, when encroaching this question, as a student, you can start by defining the concept of research. That means research is a scientific and systematic search for deep information. Scientific and systematic search for deep information on a particular topic or on a particular subject matter. But again, the center of the question is the objectives of research in Tanzania. So when we are doing research in Tanzania, what are the basic objectives that we normally focus? And you are told 4. So, number 1, to verify falsification of the explaining theories and the principles. If there are theories and principles that are being explained already, now if they are false in nature, they don't have known informations, you can justify by conducting research. You understand the falsification of that particular theories and principles. But number 2, solving social problems we conduct research for the purpose of solving social problems that are confronting the society. Whether those problems are diseases like cholera, malaria, HIV, and currently we have corona, we can conduct those studies, we can conduct research in order to solve problems. But number three, establishing new theories in order to replace the old one. If there are new theories that we want to establish in Tanzania, we can now conduct studies, and those theories can be also used to replace the old one. But number four, we conduct research in Tanzania in order to get knowledge and skills, to increase knowledge and skills for the researchers. Because when they are doing different research, they can be in a position of increasing their knowledge, increasing their skills. That is part A of the question. Part B, you are told to describe the terms, you are told to describe the following terms as they are used in research. You are told to describe the terms that are used as they are used in research. You are given terms, then you have to describe them. And describe them how those terms are used in research. Term Roman 1, you have case study. What is a case study as used in research? Now, a case study basically refers to the specific or selected area or place to be researched, representing the whole society of the country. That means it is an area which is selected specifically for the purpose of generating information, and that area will represent the whole other areas in the country. For example, when you conduct study maybe in the selected secondary schools, whether maybe in Mvomero district, or you conduct study in the selected secondary schools in Morogoro municipality, that is what you call case study. The area which is specifically selected for generating a certain knowledge, that is what you call case study. Another term is participatory observation. This is basically a method of observation in research where researcher become part and parcel of the group that is studied or the group that is observed. Participatory observation is the method of observation that is the researcher is becoming part and parcel of the group of the group that is going to be studied. That means he or she participate full in that particular observed group. For example, when doing research on the use of research on the use of drug abuse, for example, the researcher under participatory observation will participate fully with those drug users. That is what we call participatory observation. And he or she will participate for the purpose of observing them. Roman 3, we have research hypothesis. Research hypothesis. This refers to the intelligent guess or logical guess questions with the proposed answers on the cause of a particular problem. Research hypothesis, you are talking about guess questions, which sometimes have proposed answers that the researcher thinks to be the possible cause of a particular problem. For example, if a researcher is doing research, for example, on the causes, the failure of geography subject among the Form 4 students, one of the hypotheses can be the failure of these students is due to their laziness. That can be a hypothesis. And this hypothesis can be either alternative or null hypothesis. So, the Roman 4, we have research problem. This refers to the idea of interest. Idea of interest or is a question or is a problem that the researcher generates knowledge or collect data in order to answer that question. This is what we call a research problem. That was NECTA 2016, and then you are going to NECTA 2017. Under this question again, NECTA 2017, there were various parts of the question. It was about 2 parts. We have part A and part B. Part A, you are told to describe the following research terms. Describe the following research term. Number one, we have population. What is population in research? So basically, population refers to the group of people or items, which the researcher is interested to study. The group of items or people that the researcher is interested to study, that is population. It can be a number of items that are subject to the researcher. That means in research, population does not mean only people. It can be people or any other living and non-living entity. So we are going to question number 4, that is NECTA 2017, and it has also 2 parts. Part A, describe the following research terms. So as a candidate, should be able to describe thoroughly these terms as they are used in research. Term number 1, you have population. So in research, population refers to the group of people or items which the researcher is interested to study. The group of people or items that the researcher is interested to study. That means it can also be termed as a number of items that are subject to the researcher. That means it can be people, but also it can be non-living or living entity. That means in research, population does not only mean people. That is number 1, population. Number 2, another term, that is random sampling. Random sampling. This is a technique in data collection where each member in the population has an equal chance of being selected in the sample or of being included in the sample. That means a technique that is used in data collection where each member in the population has an equal chance of being included in the sample. It can be defined as a technique whereby every member in the population has a chance of being selected as a sample. That means what we call random. Are selected randomly. There is no basic criteria that are set for an item to be selected. Each member can be selected in the sample. That is random. Then you have literature review. Literature review. This refers to the reading thoroughly and incorporating various studies which are related to one's research problem. That means when we make literature review, it involves reading various written documents. That is whether a book or a magazine or a newspaper or any kind of written material which are related to this research, a certain issue, then incorporate those ideas in that particular study. This is what we call literature review. That means reading, making review. That is what we call literature review. That was part A of the question. Part B, the question asks, part B, Roman 1, to define secondary data. What is secondary data? So secondary data, as a student, can define secondary data as the data, refers to a secondary data refers to the research information that is collected through reading the written source. Secondary data are those information that are collected through reading written source, which are relevant to the research study. Now, a data that is collected by reading various written source that are related to the study, that is what we call secondary data. Such information are normally collected by reading books, journals, newspapers, magazines, and so forth. This is what we call secondary data. That is Roman 1. Then Roman 2 of the question is to describe or to give 2 merits of secondary data. 4 merits, not 2. Give 4 merits of secondary data. So secondary data has the following merits. Number one, it is easy to collect research data because this information are already present. They are there. You just go and read. That is easy to collect information because the data are already present. That is number one. Number two, secondary data may not easily be collected from primary source. Another merits, it cannot easily be collected by other primary source. It is only collected by readings and not otherwise. Means you cannot get that data if you don't read. That is the idea. Number three, it is easier to say, to the researcher to understand the trend of the information because those data are available. The researcher can understand the trend, how large the information is. Are they accessible or not accessible? That is the trend of the information. But again, most of the data collected are not expensive. They are not expensive because you go there, you read, then you extract what you want. Then that is how cheap or simple it is. That is, the data collected are not expensive. That is another merits of what we call literature, secondary data. That was NECTA 2017. Then we are going to NECTA 2018. NECTA 2018, part A of the question asks, give three differences between interview and observation. These are method of data collection, but you are told, give three differences. The question asks, give three differences between interview and observation. Now, the difference, here the student has to give the difference. What is the difference between interview and observation? So the difference between interview and observation is just as follows. Number one, an interview involves two main groups. That is interviewer and interviewee. That means the researcher and the respondents. The interview involves two groups, that is the researcher and the respondents. That means the researcher asks questions, the respondents respond to those questions. While observation involves only the researcher observing, that is who makes observation using the sense of organs. And observation, the researcher involve only the researcher who make observation by the use of different sense of organs. And that observation can either be participatory or non-participatory observation. Those sense of organs can either be eyes, ear, skin, tongue, etc. That means the researcher can see, can smell out, can touch, and can taste, etc., etc. That is observation. An interview involves two groups, that is interviewer and interviewee, while under observation, it's only the researcher who observe the group. Another difference is that an interview involves asking questions in order to obtain data from the respondents. That means under interview, you cannot be able to get information if you don't ask questions. Whereas observation involves observing the site and recording the events. That is the difference. Interview asks questions, waiting for the answers, while observations involve observing the site and recording the events. Another difference is that an interview can either be structured or unstructured, but involve verbal interaction between the researcher and the respondents. While observation can be participatory or non-participatory, depending whether the researcher observe or involve direct in the observed group or indirect. That is where it can be either participatory or non-participatory observation. That is the idea of the question. That means those are the three differences between interview and observation. That was part A of the question that has two parts. That is Roman 1 and Roman 2. Part B of the question asks about explain 4 merits of library research. 4 merits of library research. This is a new concept, another concept. Now, the idea is, what is the library research? So the student has first to give out what is library research, and thereafter continue by writing the merits of the library research. So a library research is a literary review, or the research whereby the researcher read and analyze studies of various written documents, such as textbooks, magazines, newspapers in the library. It is a library research because the information are generated in the library just by reading those written documents. Now the information is collected by reading various documents found in the library. That is the idea of library research. Now after defining the concept of library research, it's where now a student can be able to give those merits of library research. Now, merits means advantages. 4 merits. Merits is just like significance. How significant library research is. Number 1, library research provides more knowledge and experience to the researcher. To provide more knowledge and experience to the researcher about the problem being investigated, because those information extracted from the library are related to the topic or are related to the subject matter. So automatically they make a researcher get more knowledge. Provide more knowledge and experience to the researcher. But again, it provides ready-made data being available all the time. Library research provides ready-made data being available all the time. Because you go in the library, the materials are there. What is needed is reading them. That is to provide ready-made materials. But again, library research saves time and cost that will be spent on data collection from the field. That means instead of going to the field to collect informations, you just, researcher just go to the library and collect those information. That is, it saves time and cost, because sometimes going in the field may incur a lot of cost. So this one is likely to become very cheap. But number 4, library research, the researcher is guided on which type of research design to be used. That simplifies the process of field research, because the researcher knows what specifically is to be done. That means the researcher goes in the library and he or she is going to look very specific information that are subject to his or her study. So automatically, this also may simplify the designing of that study. This is the idea, these are the 4 merits of library research. That was NECTA 2018. Now we are going to NECTA 2019. Now, under 2019, there is a new format on how to ask questions. Instead of cramming, now the question goes deeper, looking on the knowledge of the student. That is what you call the question focus on paradigm shift. That means the student, as a student, has to understand the idea. What is the need of the question? Understanding knowledge. That means the question needs knowledge of the student and not otherwise. So, for example, NECTA 2019, the question asks, Lugano is studying in boarding schools at Kigoma, but his home place is in Kilosa district, where he used to observe several conflicts between farmers and pastoralists. Now, in his second week in school, he heard through the radio that a farmer was killed by the pastoralists in his home village. He decided to conduct research about the conflicts. That was question number 6. So this question needs a person who student who understands the idea. That's why we say it measures what we call what the student knows and not otherwise. So from there now, the question asks, Roman 1 of the question, it asks about suggest the statement of the problem for this research. That means for the research that is likely to be conducted about the question of conflicts between pastoralists and the farmers, you as a student has to suggest the statement of the problem. Now, when a student read thoroughly that question, he or she may find that the best statement of the problem for that research is the source of conflicts between the pastoralist and the farmers. Because the question asks about a farmer who was killed by the pastoralist. So automatically there is a conflict that is going on between the farmers and the pastoralist. That's why now that farmer was killed. So that is Roman 1 of the question suggests the statement of the problem. Roman 2, identify 2 sources of such research problem. 2 sources of research that research problems. Now the 2 sources of that research problem is likely to be, number 1, personal experience. That means what that person experienced, various conflicts that were taking place, that was going on about the farmers and the pastoralist. So that experience is what produces that problems. But number 2, it can be the mass media, because that person heard about this news about the killing of the farmer through the radio, because that person was somewhere at boarding schools, but he got that information from the radio. So through the mass media is another source that that helped to get that research problem. Now part C of the question, elaborate 4 possible research tools he would use during data collection. 4 tools that can be used to collect data about that problem. So those tools, the 4 tools that can be used, number 1, through questionnaires. That means various questions can be prepared and sent to, presented to those respondents to respond, because the respondents here automatically those who are in conflicts in general, so they can be responding those questionnaires. And basically questionnaires, these are a list of questions that are given to the respondents so as to provide answers to them. That means they can be either closed-ended questionnaires, but they can also be open-ended questionnaires. So automatically these can be used to generate information about these problems. But another tool can be interview. That means, verbal interactions can be used also to generate knowledge about that problem. That is, an interview is a verbal interaction between the interviewer and an interviewee. So basically, they can be structured, that means already being prepared, then asked to those respondents, but also they can be unstructured, that means not being prepared before. So this interview can be used to generate information about that problem which is going on about the farmers and the pastoralists. Another tool can be observation. That means this involves observing events through the sense of organs, such as the use of eyes, the use of ear. The researcher can observe there about the magnitude of the problem, can hear if there are some problems that need to be heard. But also can test through the nose. but again, can what we call, it can be tested, but also it depends the nature of the event. But this observation method can be used to generate that information. But another tool that can be used is focus group discussion. This involves critical thinking and analysis of certain issues between small groups. So the groups can either be between 6 to 10 individuals. That means this researcher can visit the area of study regarding, about the conflict that is going on, then organizing some groups where from those groups now, he can generate information about that problem. This is the tools that can be used under that problems. But again, part D of the question is to explain three significance of conducting research, three significance of conducting research. So basically, the student here has to give those significance of conducting that research. Number one, that research can help to solve different social and economic problems. For example, the case of this question, already we have seen that there were a problem between the pastoral and the farmers. So automatically, when the study is going to be conducted, it can solve that problem. Number two, research help to formulation of various policies in different issues. For example, when you want to formulate policy in agriculture, policy in the education system, as we have today, the free education policy. So research can help to formulate policies. But again, research also is usually in career development. For example, those people who are pursuing high-level studies, for example, PhD level, which encourage the advancement of people's career. That is the advantage of conducting research. That is NECTA 2019, which is more recently format. As I said, it needs critical thinking, understanding. It measures understanding what the student understands. Otherwise, the student cannot be able to attempt those questions. Now, another question, number 7, we have the NECTA 2020, that is last year. And the question asks that suppose you want to conduct a study or a research about maize production in your district. That is from 2008 to 2018. And your interest is to know whether the production has increased or decreased. Your plan is to consult farmers who were directly involved in the maize production for the said period. That is for this period. Now, and visit the district agricultural officer for more information. That means you focus. In order to get more information, the researcher focus to visit agricultural officer in that particular district. That was question number 5, NECTA 2020. Now, this is our explanation. Now the questions. The questions. A, what will be, that is part 1 of the question, what will be the best research approach for your study? That means after reading that question above, what do you think the best research approach for the study? Now basically when you read that one thoroughly, the best research approach for the study is quantitative approach. Quantitative approach. Why quantitative? Because this approach focuses on the number, that is numerical values. So it focuses on how much production has been produced, because the focus to look whether the production has increased or decreased. And the quantitative approach focuses on the values, the number. So automatically this one is the best approach that has to be used. Part 2 of the question asks, name the main source of data for your research. That is that research above. The main source of data for the research. Now basically here, the main source of the data for such research is primary source. Why? Since such data is fresh, that is justified by the researcher, him or herself. That means because the focus is to look at the production of maize in order to justify whether the maize production has increased or decreased, primary source is most useful, because primary source basically involve the researcher, him or herself, to get that information direct. That is the best source that can be used. Part C of the question, identify 2 individuals who will be the respondents of your study. Respondents of your study. Respondents are those people or population that the researcher is going to collect information from them. So 2 individuals that are likely to be respondents of the study include, number 1, maize farmers. Because the focus is to look at maize production, whether the production has increased or decreased. So automatically, the maize farmers are the respondents. Number 2, because the question directly said that the researcher wanted to consult the agricultural officer, so automatically the second respondent is likely to become district agricultural officer, where the researcher is going to seek those important information regarding whether the maize production in the district has decreased or has increased within the stipulated period of time. Part D of the question, mention other 6 possible sources of research problem for the similar study. Other 6 sources of research problems. So these other sources of the research problem can be, number 1, deductive from theories. Deductive from theories. That means you have a theory, you reduce that theory, then you get a specific topic, you can conduct a study from that one. So deductive from theory is the first source. Another source is from literature review. That means by reading different literature, again, one can get a topic of conducting research. So literature review, in this case also, is another source of getting research problem. Number 3, practical issues in the society. What issues are practically taking place in the society can also be center for a person to get a research problem. Number 4, we have inductive theories. That means critical thinking that creates broad concepts to be researched. This one also can become another source of a research problem. But another source is ready available problems. If there is a problem which is already available, that can become center for a person to conduct a study. For example, if you have the very dominant problem, for example, today, where corona become a very center issues of discussion, that problem can give room for a person to conduct a study. It's a very good source to conduct a study. But another one is information from experts. Information from experts also can help people to get knowledge and thereafter start to conduct study from that particular information. That information that are given by people who are knowledgeable can facilitate to generate a topic for conducting a study. Then if as a student is able to attempt questions like what you have presented and consider those issues seriously, he or she can be able to get top marks in the national examination. Thank you for watching this video. God bless you abundantly. Teacher Edgar MC. Thank you very much.